Sponsor al emisiunii, Fundația Art Production, Gigi Căciuleanu, Romania Dance Company.
Bună seara! Invitatul nostru din seara asta este doctorul Gabor Maté. Ne bucurăm să-l avem din nou invitat la emisiunea noastră. Le mulțumesc prietenilor de la editura Curtea Veche pentru mijlocirea acestei întâlniri. E vorba despre o apariție editorială eveniment. Țineți copiii aproape. O carte de Gordon Neufeld și Gabor Maté, o carte absolut impresionantă pe care o recomand cu toată căldura. Ne mulțumesc și prietenilor de la Camino, care ne găzduiesc în spațiul ăsta minunat. Good evening. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation.
It's a pleasure to speak with you again.
Thank you. Dr. Maté, I'll get straight to the point. Nowadays, parenting has lots of meanings.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, it has a constellation of meanings.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like an acting method.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like a coaching method.
Yeah.
Some other times it's like a collection of recipes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's like do this in 7, 8, 9 steps.
Yeah.
What's parenting, as a matter of fact?
Well, parenting is none of those things. It's a relationship. And parenting is common to all mammals. Elephants parent their kids, cats, rats, dolphins, dogs, tigers. And it's not a matter of techniques. They don't learn techniques. They just do it. It's a matter of relationship. And the same with human beings. So we evolved in relationship. Without the parenting relationship, there would be no human life because the infant is helpless. And so it's a relationship that begins in the womb and continues throughout life. And when it's working, we don't need techniques, we don't need advice, we don't need experts to tell us. The fact that so many experts are telling us now how to parent is precisely because we've lost the relationship.
Relationship is a very difficult notion. The word is very easy. It's very easy to pronounce, very easy to accept at a first level. But relationship, establishing relationship today is very hard. Why?
But it isn't actually. It becomes difficult in our complicated, I think, very toxic culture. But when a newborn kitten emerges from the mother's womb, is it hard? The mother just starts licking the baby. When a rat comes out from the mother's womb, the mother just starts licking the baby. When a human being emerges from the mother's womb, immediately we put the child on the mother's belly, and the child starts sucking, and the mother's brain starts releasing hormones that sustain and support the loving relationship. Nature makes it very easy. It's human activity and human misunderstanding that creates the difficulty.
What's attachment, as a matter of fact?
Yeah, so attachment is a drive. It's an instinct. Attachment is the drive to be close to somebody else for the purpose of being taken care of or for the purpose of taking care of the other person. And without the attachment drive, there's a circuit in our brain for caring and for receiving care. And again, we share that with other mammals. So attachment is just the instinctual impulse to be close to somebody else, primarily for the purpose of caretaking. And we all have it.
When we hear this as a word, attachment, it seems very easy, but attachment, it's not easy at all. Attachment can be lost and can be won.
Well, again, you're right, but the question is, it's not difficult in the first place. The average healthy parent has no difficulty attaching to the baby, and the baby has no difficulty attaching to the parent anywhere in life. You know, again, look at all animals. They don't have difficulty attaching to their infants. It's natural. And the infant has no difficulty attaching to the parent. The same with humans. So the question we have to ask is not why attachment is difficult, which in principle it isn't, but what is it about our society that makes attachment so difficult?
Right.
That's the real question.
What is it?
Well, for one thing, as human beings, we have become disconnected from our instincts. For example, children cry, infants cry. Now, infants cry for several reasons, but it's always asking for help. They might be hungry, they might be wet, physically uncomfortable, or they might be needing physical contact. Physical contact is a need of the baby. When an elephant baby is born, you know what happens? All the other mother elephants stand around, and as soon as the baby hits the ground, the mother elephants all stroke them with their trunks. So touch is just a need for the mammalian child, and particularly for the human child. Now, so the baby cries because they need to connect to you by being held by you. But then you listen to the doctors, and the doctors say, no. Let them sleep it out. Let them learn how to sleep on their own, so they don't bother you at all. Now, any parent who tries that, and lots of parents do try it, because life is busy, difficult, they have to go to work in the morning, gotta get this baby to sleep. So this 3-month-old baby is crying to be picked up, and the mother and the father follow by the way, the doctor, I used to give the same stupid advice, I confess, until I understood better. The mother and the father listen to the expert advice. What do they feel in their heart when the baby is crying and they're not picking the baby up? Their heart is breaking. Their heart is breaking because their instincts are telling them to pick up that baby. But the more we listen to the expert advice, the more we disconnect from our instincts. This actually goes back to birth itself, because birth, we interfere with birth so much. Now, the birthing process is not just the physical delivery of the child from the mother's body into the world, it's also a bonding process. It's painful, but it's a bonding process. About 10, maybe 15% of the time, we need to interfere with the cesarean section to save the mother's life or the baby's life. That's wonderful. But if you look at the rate of cesarean section now around the world, I don't know what it is here in Romania, but if you look at it around the world, it's 40–50% now. Which means that an instinctual process, which is meant to release hormones in the baby and in the mother, which promotes bonding, there's a love cocktail. This has been identified, that's what they call it. It's been identified, oxytocin, endorphins, vasopressin, these are hormones. They promote the bonding. Now, when we interfere with the C-section, we're actually interfering with the mother's instincts. So I'm not saying sometimes intervention is not necessary, but in today's world, we keep interfering with the parents' instincts, so we lose the instincts.
Dr. Maté, if we go further on the axis of age, for example, and we think of an adolescent, lots of adolescents will feel rather embarrassed if attachment is manifested on sight with their parents. They will feel more than embarrassed. What's that?
Well, they will, but that's because something has happened. In ancient cultures, in Aboriginal cultures, which have been studied very extensively, there isn't such embarrassment. The embarrassment happens, there's a natural process in adolescence, in all cultures. It's called individuation, where the child no longer can be just a child. They need to find their own individuality, their own purpose, their own understanding, their own interpretations. So but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be in hostility or in resistance to the parents. And in traditional cultures, it would be the adults who would initiate the child into the adult world, like in the Jewish bar mitzvah ceremony, or in the Aboriginal initiation ceremonies. Now, in the modern world, and this is the subject of this book, is that kids have become disconnected from adults, way too connected to each other as their primary attachments, and now it's embarrassing for them to be with their adults because they want to be with the one that they're attaching to, something has happened to their attachments, which is that the attachment which should be to the adults now goes to their peers. And this happens really early in life. And once that happens, the kids are getting separate and resistant and even embarrassed.
Is this a new phenomenon?
It's new, and historically it's quite new. In peacetime, look, if you look at how human beings evolved, actually for millions of years, in our own species, which has been on the earth for 200,000 years, for those 200,000 years, until 10,000 years ago, 12,000 years ago, or even more recently in many places, kids grew up around the adults. Small groups of adults and kids, they traveled together, they hunted together, they collected together, they lived together, and so that kids were naturally embedded in a whole network of supportive adult attachments. And that's how they grew up. Now, it's really since the Second World War when this peer attachment began to really become huge, because what happened was the mothers, I'm talking at least the Western world now, the mothers had to go to work. The fathers were away at war. A lot of women went to work in factories, you know, and that was a liberation for them to be able to get out.
So it's a consequence of a sort of emancipation.
It's a consequence of an emancipation that had to happen, but it didn't have to happen the way it did. So all of a sudden, kids spend it was totally natural for kids to be around their parents the whole day. On the farm, in the village, kids are around their parents the whole day. That's just how it worked. And all of a sudden, in the cities, kids spend most of their time away from their parents, and what happens to the brain is that when your primary attachments are missing, it has to be filled with somebody else.
Is that the reason that you say the power of being a parent is dissipating?
Yes, because children who are attaching to parents, they want to be the same as the parents, they want to belong to them, they want to be good for them, they take their parents as their models. But once children attach to each other as their primary attachments, now they want to be like each other, follow each other, be loyal to each other, which means keeping secrets from the parents.
Right.
They want to belong maybe to a gang where they do what the other people do,
right,
and go against the parents. So, and we think these are bad kids. They're not bad kids. They're just kids who lost their primary attachments to the adults responsible for them. Same with teachers. The teachers who know how to connect emotionally with their kids and and invite the kids into relationship, it's very easy for them to teach. But the teachers who don't do that, it becomes a struggle.
Once lost, can we recover? Can we take back? Can we re-win attachment?
The answer is yes, and that's why we wrote the book. But there are big barriers. One barrier is the cell phone and the computer. Because with the social media now, kids can be with each other even when they're not in each other's physical presence. So they're always desperately texting each other.
Right.
Why are they so desperate? Because they're attaching to each other. And so trying to get a kid who's peer attached off their Twitter service or their Instagram or their YouTube or their email is like trying to separate a drug addict from their drug. They're it's addictive. And so it's a real challenge. It can be done, takes a lot of understanding, a lot of patience, a lot of persistence, but that's why we wrote the book, because unless we do, kids are lost, because young children and teenagers are never designed by nature to bring each other to maturity. And you can see it in the animal world. In the animal world, like amongst elephants, when you remove the alpha elephants, the lead elephants, the adolescent elephants become bullies, and they start hurting each other and other creatures. Not because they're bad, but because they've lost the influence of the leader.
You say it very clearly. When there are troubles, focus on the relation, not on the incident.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Everybody will focus on the incident.
We open the book with a quote by the spiritual teacher Krishnamurti.
Yes.
And he said that action has meaning only in relationship, and without understanding relationship, any plan of action will only breed conflict. Unfortunately, parenting experts, many psychologists, they just tell the parents to deal with the behavior with the incidents, with the episodes, rather than understanding what is happening in the relationship that has created these problems. And so what we're saying is we have to restore the relationship, because focusing on the incidents, focusing on the behavior, just will create more conflict.
Very difficult words. Power,
Yeah,
hierarchy,
yeah,
domination, discipline.
yeah.
Is attachment a matter of power, hierarchy, domination, discipline?
To some extent it is. The question is for what purpose? Like, a parent has to dominate the child. The 1-year-old baby does not get a vote on whether they can go outside naked into the winter snow. You don't get a vote on this. You're staying inside till you get dressed. You know, it's a dictatorship. It's a dominance. Now, the question
These
is,
are how it was.
well, I know, but let's not call it dictatorship. Let's call it a hierarchy. There's somebody in charge. Okay, now, you had a hierarchy here in Romania, Ceausescu.
Oh, yes.
Everybody remembers him. But the purpose of his domination was power and control and wealth.
And he was the father of the nation.
Yeah, for him. Well, he thought he was. But the point is, what is the intention of the domination? In the parenting hierarchy, the intention is to care for and to protect and to support and bring to maturation the little ones. It's a healthy hierarchy.
You say natural discipline.
Yeah.
What's natural discipline?
Well, your Romance language, Jesus had disciples, right? What does that mean that he had disciples? He had followers. Why did they follow him? Because they loved him, and he loved them. So they naturally followed him. So that's discipline, when you follow somebody. But we always confuse discipline with punishment. We think we have to punish people in order to get them to follow the right path. We don't. If a child trusts a parent and loves the parent and wants to belong to the parent, then the child will naturally follow. Like when you look on the pond, on a lake, and the mother duck is swimming like this, and all of a sudden she turns, and there's 6 little ducklings in a row following her. She doesn't have to beat them. As soon as she turns, they turn. That's discipline, because they trust her, they follow her. That's what discipline is. When we lose the attachment.
So this is not submission.
It's not submission. No, it's not submission. It's discipleship. And we lose that when we lose the attachment relationship. Now we have to enforce our rules. By the way, the more we enforce our rules, the more we push on our kids. Just put your hand out for a minute, if you would. Okay, what do you do as soon as I push on you?
I respond.
Absolutely, you push back.
Yeah.
And the harder I push on you, the harder you push back. But kids do the same thing. And then we call them bad kids. But they're not. The resistance comes from the fact that they don't trust us, we're not in a relationship with them, now we're pushing on them, they're going to push back. If you don't want them to push back, now a healthy degree of pushing back is good, because it means you can be your own individual. Kids start doing that when they're 1.5 years old. What's the word they start saying by 1.5? They start saying no. Why do they start saying no? Because they have to become their own person. And before we can say yes, we have to say no. So that's natural, but there's nothing bad about it. If parents mistake that for bad behavior and they push hard on the kid, what they're going to get back is more pushing and more pushing.
Dr. Maté, let's put a little bit of nuance into this.
Yeah.
If a family,
Yeah.
a virtual one,
Yeah.
follows the recommendations in this book,
Yeah.
let's not call them recommendations, let's call it the substance of the book. If a family follows that, it'll be completely detached from the friendly families they've been together with for a long time.
Absolutely.
It's a disconnection from your social system of relationship. What do you do?
Well, I can tell you that this book has been published by in over 30 countries around the world, and we get thank yous from everybody. We just get thank yous. That's because it works. And it's true. those parents will have to explain what they're doing to their friends because their friends won't understand it. Many of them won't understand it. But you know what? You have to decide what's more important to you.
Because the peers don't matter only for the kids.
Yeah.
The peers matter for the parents as well.
That's totally true, because now we've had 3 or 4 or 5 generations brought up with this peer connection,
Right.
being dominant.
Right.
So a lot of the parents are what we call peer-oriented. They have a hard time. But what I can tell you is, again, just how grateful people are. And by the way, our intention in this book is not to teach people new techniques, but to actually reawaken their relationship, to reawaken their instincts. When that happens, it's a miracle.
But you know that somebody who follows this
Yeah.
will be regarded as a weirdo.
Well, that's a risk they'll have to take. I mean, I don't go around speaking because I say what everybody else says. I go around speaking what I believe. And if some people think I'm a weirdo, let them think that, you know.
Your formulation is like this: a cerebral death of culture.
Yeah.
What do you mean by a cerebral death of culture?
So if you look at human knowledge and the human brain, we think that the brain is just up here. But actually, physiologically speaking, and therefore also psychologically speaking, there's a nervous system in the heart. There's also a nervous system in the gut. So we talk about gut feelings. And the gut sends more messages to the brain than the brain sends to the gut. And people know things in their gut. I mean, people have gut feelings that tell them the truth more than the brain will tell them the truth. Sometimes people will say, I know it in my heart, and they did. And these 3 brains, if you can call them that, need to be connected. In the modern world, this one dominates, disconnected from our heart, disconnected from our guts, and therefore our knowledge is very clever, but it's not very intelligent. Because true intelligence depends on the connection of ourselves to a whole body.
There are lots of teachers that will say the following phrase: this pupil is impossible to be educated.
Yeah.
End of quotation.
Yeah.
Is this for real?
I used to be a teacher. I was a high school teacher.
Yeah, I know.
And they gave me a class once that was all the impossible kids in the school. They wouldn't obey, they didn't know how to learn, they wouldn't listen to the teachers.
So they were impossible to be educated.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, except they weren't. So the first day I worked with them, I don't know where this came from, I brought musical instruments to the class. I bought drums, I bought flutes and recorders and bells and all kinds of other instruments. And I said, I gave everybody an instrument, and I started strumming my guitar. They just started blowing on the instrument, beating the drums.
Didn't you get a chaos?
It wasn't chaos, it was a musical festival.
Wow.
They expressed their energy, their creativity, they felt good with each other, they felt good with me. Next day I came in with a map of Liverpool, and I said, today we're going to study geography. They were eating out of my hands. So, and I've seen other teachers do the same thing. So if the teacher finds the kid impossible, it's because the teacher doesn't know how to get in relationship with that child. Once we get in relationship, no child is impossible.
Please tell me as clear as you can, do rules and restrictions work or not?
Again, it depends on who is setting the rules and with what intention. Now, yeah, rules work. If I had a gun in my hand, and if I pointed at you, and I said, stand up, sit down, jump, turn around, lie down, you would follow the rules.
Most probably.
Yeah, you know, out of sheer fear. So, is that what we, but the trouble is, when kids are afraid, they don't learn. They actually shrink. Now, if, however, you trust me, and you really believe in that I'm here for you, and you believe that I have something to offer you, then I'll say, listen, here are the rules, let's follow them, see what happens. You would naturally follow. So the answer is yes, but it depends who's setting the rules, with what intention. There was lots of rules in Ceausescu's Romania that everybody followed. You can say they worked, but they worked for who? For whose benefit did they work?
Yep.
You know, so again, it's a question of relationship.
These days, Dr. Maté, I mean, our time is time full of psychology.
Yeah.
Everything is psychological. There's like a new religion, and the new priests are psychotherapists, psychiatrists. There's a hierarchy of power. Mm-hmm. There are powerful ones, less powerful ones. Where do you place yourself in this world? I mean, do you consider yourself a guru? Do you consider yourself a part of this phenomenon?
Believe me, I'm not a guru. Ask my wife if you think I'm a guru. Or my kids. Look, I have a point of view. Mm-hmm. I've studied a lot, I've experienced a lot, I've thought a lot, I've written a lot. To a lot of people, it makes sense. A lot of people believe that what I've had to tell them changed their lives, whether it's illness or mental illness or addictions or parenting. I just get that feedback everywhere I go. Some people consider me, therefore, some kind of an authority, and they feel that what they've learned from me has been helpful to them. That's all I can say. Lots of people disagree with me. Some people disagree with me without understanding what I'm saying. But that's not my concern. I'm not concerned about my status, really I'm not.
What's your concern?
Oh, that people should be free. There's two ways that we cannot be free. One is if there's a political system that doesn't allow you to be free, or that manipulates you, or controls you, or an economic system. That's one way not to be free. The other way not to be free is to be controlled by unconscious drives, by traumas that you sustained, that you don't even realize. And then we're like a puppet, like Pinocchio, being pulled on a string by our unconscious. I want people to be free from their unconscious. And if you remember what Pinocchio said, do you remember Pinocchio?
Oh yes, obviously.
Okay, when Pinocchio becomes a real boy,
yes,
you know what he says? I was so foolish when I was a puppet. So I want people to be free. That's what calls me.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
And I reiterate it as a matter of fact. If this is not a method to be followed,
Yeah.
Bible-like,
Yeah.
then what is it?
It's a wake-up call. I want people to wake up. I want people to get in touch with their instincts. I want them to realize that relationship is what really matters. And that once you understand relationship, pretty much everything will take care of itself. And if you don't, all you're going to have is difficulties. So it's a pretty simple that way. I should say that this book is due to the brilliance of my friend Gordon Neufeld,
Yep.
a psychologist. It's his work. He's not a writer, I am. I did the writing with him,
Yep.
but this book would not exist without him. And he understands children like nobody in the whole world does, I tell you that.
I lied. This is my last question.
Yeah.
If somebody says, the book is perfect,
Yeah.
I understand it,
Yeah.
I will follow it,
Yeah.
or I would follow it,
Yeah.
but my kid is impossible. My kid doesn't fit here.
I would say I totally understand. I used to believe the same thing. It takes a lot of work. It takes a refusal to be discouraged. It takes persistence and patience. But I'm telling you, it's the only way. And most people who follow it find some success. And occasionally, you don't, because there's nothing perfect in life. But I would say that by far, the understanding of relationship and listening to again, there's this circuitry in our brain for caring. People really care for their kids. So, and even parents who are frustrated and unhappy with their kids really love their kids and they really care for them. And I would say, listen to the caring more than you listen to the frustration.
Thank you so much for accepting this interview. It's been a pleasure to see you again.
And likewise, thank you again.
It'll always be a pleasure to see you again.
Well, hope to do it again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mulțumim frumos, le mulțumesc prietenilor de la editura Curtea Veche pentru mijlocirea acestui interviu și, bineînțeles, prietenilor de la Camino pentru locul ăsta minunat. Noapte bună!